Ho, ho, ho. It's the Ball with the Beast podcast presented by our great friends at White Insurance Services alongside Brent Hubbs and Paul Fortenberry. Paulie, Tennessee goes on the road and they get a nice win on the road and doing it in a different fashion. 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now, it was a defensive win by the defense against Texas A&M. Defense, not so good against Kentucky, but the offense showed up and they get to win 33-27.
Yeah, they did enough to win on the defensive side. How about that? But yeah, offensively, Joe Milton probably his most efficient day as a Vol, which was great to see. And then the trio of running backs again. This team goes as far as they go. I mean, Jalen Wright in the first half just looked phenomenal, and then Dylan Sampson on a couple of drives towards the end of the game. They just kind of put it on his shoulders, and he took him down the field, got essentially the game-winning touchdown. And obviously a big win in the SEC. Any win's a really good win, and you're still in the race for the East. Georgia's still got to come through Knoxville, and so you set yourself up for a November that is meaningful, right? So I'll be interested to see how the rest of the season plays out. They got a layup this weekend, but absolutely a crucial win. You never want to lose to Kentucky or Vanderbilt, but they got the job done.
Yeah, if they win next week, however, they're either going to be playing for the East, which means that Georgia's lost to either Ole Miss or Missouri, or they're playing the number one team in the country at home with a chance to win and potentially go 10-2 in back-to-back seasons. Either way, that's what makes next week so big, right? I mean, like they're either going to be playing the number one team with a chance to get the double-digit wins in the regular season, or again, playing for the East, which is all you could ask for in the month of November. Too many times, Hubbard, in the last 15 years, November, they might have remembered what you did in it, but it didn't matter going into November.
Well, I mean, head coaches like to say they're all big, right? But the reality is, when you're out of the bowl conversation, you're out of the championship conversation, they're not as big. This team is look. Everybody's going to talk about the Florida game, what they gave away, and the opportunity they had at Alabama that they didn't capitalize on. But still, this team is setting in a position that the next two games after this weekend is very meaningful for not just Tennessee. It's meaningful for the conference race. It's meaningful for the playoffs. It's meaningful for the bowls. And that's where you're trying to get this program to. You're trying to be relevant in November when they put out the playoffs numbers, and you start talking about championships and competing for championships. So it's another step in the continued progression of this program. Year two was just a little bit of an outlier because the quarterback play was so good. Year three's not been bad, but by any means, it's just that you jumped up in year two because you got such great quarterback play that some people, I've seen people they saved their season last week. I don't really buy all of that. That was a big win, and it makes the rest of November even more relevant. But I think this team is continued to progress pretty nicely.
Elsewhere around the league is it's a really big week. Not for Tennessee, they play UConn, and we'll let Paul pick that game coming up. It'll be a shocker who he picks. But it's starting with A&M on the road at Ole Miss. This is a game where A&M comes in, not really in the best of shape. Can Jimbo suffer another loss? Lane, he loves to pick the bones of a dead carcass, and we'll see if he can do so on Saturday.
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's just about Ole Miss's offense. A&M's defense is absolutely one of the top in the SEC, but since Max Johnson's taken over, they just haven't been that explosive. Their run game is, below average. And then you go to Ole Miss, you go to Oxford, where Ole Miss is pretty tough. And I just, I think it's tough for a team that doesn't have a great offensive identity to play a Lane Kiffin team. And can, on the other side, I thought about this earlier this week, can Ole Miss avoid what's happened the last two Novembers, right? They're kind of sitting in the same position they've been the last 2 years, and then they've just floundered down the stretch. They just have not been able to win the big games. And part of that last year, obviously, was Lane flirting with Auburn, or we can say that's an excuse, right? But at the end of the day, for Lane to take a next step, for Ole Miss to take a next step, they're going to have to win a lot of these ball games in November. So, I think it's interesting to put that that part of this game in there is how they've played in November. But at home, again, just with Texas A&M's lack of an offense, I think it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think where Texas A&M is, they're really good in the front. We know that on defense. They're very suspect in the back end and the secondary, which I think could play into Ole Miss's hands and the Lane Kiffin's hands in terms of drawing some stuff up. Noon start or 11 a.m. start in Oxford, that probably helps A&M because it's probably not going to be the most intense world over there. But this is an interesting game because I think there's a ton of pressure on Jimbo Austin because the buzzards are circling, so to speak, right? I mean, they're circling around there. But at the same time, too, I think this is a very big game for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss because of what Paul said.
Yeah,
they've been here before in November and they've just wilted. Are they going to wilt this year in November, or are they going to make their November really meaningful? And this is a first big test in that month of November with this team.
Yeah, because I mean, next week they play Georgia in Athens.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got 2 physical games back to back. Obviously, they have the Egg Bowl still coming up on the schedule. So I mean, I'm with you. I think that Paul brings up a great point. Obviously, we all know everybody's ready for the final shoe to drop. For Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher, what kind of game plan does Jimbo come up with this week? Because right now, I think a lot of people are loving up Ole Miss, which I think sets up well for A&M. Paulie?
Well, first of all, how in the world can A&M, I know they've got tons of money, but would they really buy out Jimbo after this year? And he's is that $80 million left on the contract?
Yeah, but here's the thing. So if you don't buy him out, it drops what, $6 million next year? I mean,
even if it's 10 or 12, who cares? Like 68, 84. It's still a ridiculous amount of money. The biggest thing is that you have to pay it in 30 days or whatever.
He gets just a lump sum. It's not over the course of the contract.
I think it's
horrible contract this is.
I think it's like half or something like that in 30 days. Like you got to pay some stupid amount of money really quick.
Right.
Which is the way that a lot of them are built in now.
That's brutal. All right, but yeah, back to the game. I don't know that it matters. A lot of times when coaches' backs against the wall, there's a reason their backs against the wall because their team's not playing well. They haven't been coaching well. And I mean that's what's happening here. I just don't believe in A&M's offense. Maybe Jimbo can find some magic and then get something going. But I mean Max Johnson, we've seen him at LSU, we've seen at A&M. He is who he is, right? He's not going to magically turn into a big time product out of this week at Ole Miss. And Hubbard, you make a good point. 11 o'clock, they'll be having brunch in the Grove, which maybe that's more wild than most brunches. Again, I just have trouble seeing A&M going there, being highly motivated to come out of there with a win versus what Ole Miss has to play. They're still in contention in the West. They're very much in contention in the West. Alabama's not, infallible down the last month stretch. I mean, LSU wins this weekend, and the West is up for grabs. So, I mean, there's a ton at stake for Ole Miss compared to what's at stake for Texas A&M beyond Jimbo's contract.
Speaking of a lot on the table, both Missouri and Georgia control their destiny in the SEC East. If Missouri can get past the Bulldogs and beat the Vols next week, they're providing no other upsets down the line, they're going to be headed to Atlanta, which would be remarkable for Eli Drinkwitz and the Tigers. They go to Athens this week. Tennessee fans will sure be paying attention to this one because a loss by the Bulldogs totally brings the Vols back into the SEC Eastern Championship mix. Can Missouri, and we're going to pick the game later, but how do they stay with Georgia, a Georgia team that seems like they're getting better by the week?
Yeah, I agree with you, AP. Carson Beck has looked really strong outside of the first drive that Florida had last week where they scored a touchdown. Georgia looked dominant. I mean, they just looked extremely dominant. I think, like I said, Carson Beck's playing well. The defense has really found some playmakers. They found their identity, which we're wondering when that was going to happen this year. But again, credit to Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz for being relevant this time of year. We've all kind of giggled and laughed at some of the things he said or done up there at Missouri. But man, they're playing well this year. They've got an explosive offense. They've got a good defense, and I think I saw the spread was like 15 and a half. And it is in Athens, but that still feels pretty aggressive to me for a Missouri team that's playing really well and has a really good quarterback. I mean, I don't know if you guys would agree with this. I feel like this is Georgia's strongest test of the season by far. So I'll be really interested to see how Missouri plays on the road, not at home. At UGA, that's an intimidating environment where I don't think they've been in one like that this year. So it'll be a really good game. I'm expecting it to be a good game at least.
Well, I mean, here's a news flash to everybody. Georgia can win without the Heisman Trophy winning tight end on the field. Paul.
My God, Brock Bowers.
I think Brock Bowers is really good, but Georgia's got a lot of weapons, and those weapons showed up. And they probably, to some degree, were a little too dependent on Bowers early in the year. Probably didn't spread the ball around as much as they should, and they were more dynamic offensively against Florida than they had been because, one, they're letting Carson Beck play, kind of cutting him loose and letting him play, and he spread the ball around very well. I'm going to be fascinated to see the start of this game because Missouri was down 14-0 at Kentucky, and that looked like Kentucky was going to mop the floor up with them or the field up with them in Missouri's first true road game. And then Missouri fakes a punt, and they get back in the game. Paul, if you no-show at Georgia, if you're Missouri, if you no-show early in that game, that thing is going to be – ask Kentucky, right?
Yeah, that
thing's going to be completely out of control in a hurry. So I think the first couple possessions for this Missouri team in this game is just going to be vital. To me, that's the biggest thing to watch in this game on Saturday is can Missouri survive the start of this game?
Well, and I don't think you have to have points early. You obviously would love to have them, but you've got to – if you're not getting – points on offense, you got to have stops on defense.
Yeah.
So one side of the ball's got to bring it Saturday to keep them in it, early because you're right. I mean, like Georgia's very aware, that they win this one and then they beat Ole Miss next week and that Tennessee game becomes moot point. They're the champs. If they win this week and next week, it doesn't matter what Tennessee does against them. So, to me, that's going to be, these next two games before Tennessee hosts Georgia are critical for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and if you're Eli Drinkowitz, you can't make mistakes like Billy Napier did on Florida's second drive last week. 4th and inches, you try some crazy halfback pass that gets just totally blown up, and then the game's out of control after that.
Right.
That was one of the most. I think I texted both you guys that.
We did.
How do they make? I don't know what Billy Napier's salary is, but he deserves to give his game check back after that one. I mean, it was one of the worst coaching calls I've ever seen, and you can't do that against a great team like that. You got to do what keeps you in the game, and going for it on 4th and short, or even punting it away, whatever. But just don't make stupid against great teams. You can't make stupid mistakes. You can't make avoidable mistakes, and that was 100% avoidable, and then the game just got out of hand right after that.
The more things change, the more they stay the same, Huber. I mean, he said the same thing about you when you wrote that story about Tim Tebow at SEC Media Days. You should give your month check back that week. And I'm like, dang.
Oh, man, I don't remember the Tebow story.
I want to change Paul's lower third down there to Tyler from Spartanburg.
He is. That's who it was. It was
Hey, I supported Dabo on that one. Totally supported Dabo going off on that guy. Totally.
My favorite part of it was when he was doing his rant, and he was like, Tyler. Tyler. Out loud when he did that.
Tyler.
Oh, it was like your mom using your middle name when you're about 8 years old. You're like, oh man, I'm in trouble.
So we got big Clemson fans that live two houses up the street from me. And so on Halloween, kids go by there and they get candy. I'm like, can you guess my attire? And of course, I always look like I'm dressed to play golf. And they're like, you're a golfer. I said, I'm Tyler from Spartanburg.
Tyler. Golly, those man. Hey.
But Paul, your point back to the Florida thing is exactly right. Don't coach yourself out of the game early. Like make it 60 minutes. Stay in it as long as you can stay, particularly when you're the road team, you're the underdog. Put the pressure on the home team by staying into the game As long as you can. Look, I get Eli going for the fake punt against Kentucky. They needed a spark. They were down 14-0. They obviously saw something there. But, I mean, Billy Napier, you've been really good out of the gates. You got a touchdown. Settle into the game and play the game. Don't give away points the way that they did. Much the way Kentucky, when they went to Athens, gave away points because they had like 12 penalties in their first 2 drives, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they killed their first 2 drives with personal foul penalties. Just weren't smart. Missouri's got to play smart and settle into this game if they're going to make it a 4-quarter fight.
Speaking of playing smart, LSU's going to have to play smart at Alabama. Again, Alabama's kind of got control of the West right now, but that could shift if LSU can find a way to make it 2 in a row against the Tide.
Yeah, Milroe's playing pretty good right now. It's funny to me what the benching has maybe done for him. I don't know. He doesn't play against USF, and then he's not turning the ball over now, which really killed him in that Texas game. And they've found some identity on that side of the ball. But then here comes LSU that has one of the most explosive offenses in the SEC, if not the most explosive. Their defense is Jekyll and Hyde. You get maybe something different a little bit every week from them. They should be better. They have the athletes to do it. So, yeah, man, this massive game, as it should be between LSU and Alabama, this should hopefully, be a tremendous game, a nightcap on CBS on Saturday. I'm looking forward to that. So, yeah, I'll be really interested to see what this LSU team looks like. Can they withstand early Alabama, and then can they make plays in the second half? Alabama in the second half the last few weeks, obviously against Tennessee, they've been really good. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm really looking forward to this game. I think it'll be a tremendous game.
Yeah, for me, this one's all about how does Alabama handle the feet of Jaden Daniels and his ability to make plays with his feet. If there's been a kryptonite, AP, to Nick Saban's defense through the years, it's been mobile quarterbacks.
Yep.
You go back and you look, and I mean, that was one of the things that helped Tennessee get out of the gates, right? I mean, against them 2 weeks ago. Joe Milton's legs were a factor. He did some good things with his feet, particularly early in that game. Jaden Daniels likes to run a lot. So how does Alabama negotiate defensively with Daniels' running ability? Because he's going to be the most mobile, most athletic quarterback who can also throw it that they've played all year long. And that type of player has typically given Saban some issues and some problems. So, I think Daniels just has to be unbelievable for them to win this game. But you know what? He was terrific against them a year ago in Baton Rouge. So can he do it 2 years in a row against Nick Saban, who's had a year to get ready to play him?
And you've got 2 stud receivers too. I mean, what Texas did with their receivers, that killed Alabama. That's one thing I think too, a key matchup. I think Napier's tremendous. So I think that's a tough matchup for Alabama.
This stat from the River Bailey Sports Network: Nick Saban has not been beaten in consecutive years by the same quarterback since 1998 when he was at Michigan State. He was beaten back-to-back years by Drew Brees and Purdue.
Nice stat. That's a terrific stat. Can I? Yeah, okay. That stat will go okay with where I'm at with this game, I think, ultimately. But yeah, I mean, again, you've got Nick Saban, who's had a year to prepare for him and get ready for him. What does Brian Kelly?
Maybe
what does Brian Kelly have? And again, I mean, can LSU get enough defensive stops to get off the field, or can Alabama kind of salt the game away with their offense? I mean, Milroe's feet have become more of a factor. He's healthier than he was 3 or 4 weeks ago. He seems to be willing to run a little bit more. I think Nick Saban's actually done a really nice job with this team, considering where they were early in the year. I think they've improved. This is not his best team by any means. They're not dominant, but they've done a nice job, and the schedule's helped them. Right? They've got some of their bigger matchup games at home. You got Tennessee at home. You get LSU at home. That's a win for them as opposed to
at home.
Yeah, I mean, they've got their best games at home. I mean, A&M was on the road, but other than that, the the only thing that didn't happen for them well at home is they had to play Texas, and Texas brought Big 12 officials, so that just didn't work in their favor.
Well,
I was going to say, I think you have to credit him too on Milroe. I know you talked about his legs, but he looked like a liability after Texas. You're thinking, man, this kid can't, for what Alabama wants to be, he can't help them get there. And now we're sitting here, and they're in the thick of it in the West. I mean, they're playing for the SEC West essentially this week. I mean, obviously if LSU wins and tons of chaos, but his quick maturation, the way I'm just surprised he's not turning the ball over like he was earlier in the year. And that's been huge for them in how Nick Saban wants to win. Yeah, and if you're LSU, you've got to get after the quarterback. You've got to put him in some pressure. Don't let him out of the pocket. Try and get him to throw some bad throws, but he's done a really good job the last month not doing that.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Paulie. I mean, it's a big thing. As Halloween may be behind us, but it's never too late to go trick or treating. Don't be tricked like Hubs was into picking Justin Wilcox just 2 short months ago.
Hey, look, how good was my man last week?
It was not good enough, and you're interrupting my ad. Treat yourself. The great people at Wyatt Insurance Services. Paulie, tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time of the year where both our property casualty side, which is our business insurance, and our employee benefit side, we see a lot of new clients come and join on board. Our employee benefit side's obviously doing enrollment right now, and they're great. They help employers find creative solutions that are great for their employees, for their health care. And then on our side, on the business insurance, we're seeing crazy things in the insurance market right now, property insurance like we've never seen it before, with the rise of costs in the state of Tennessee and really around the country, and on auto as well. And we're helping our clients navigate that and find the best solution, which is the most affordable with the best coverage. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call or email me at paul@wyattinsurance.com or call 865-862-3997 and ask for Paul, and we'll help take care of you.
That is Wyatt Insurance Services, our proud presenting sponsor of the Ball with the Beast podcast. Last week was kind of a ho-hum week in the picks. We all went 5-0. I mean, it was just kind of that. This week, I would assume there's going to be some shakeups. I've not seen the picks. I don't think anybody has except for Megan. Well, let's bring them up here and let's take a look at who took who.
I bet it's across the board the same thing.
Oh, no, we got a couple. I'm the only LSU at Alabama.
I'm going down with the ship with Sam Pittman, boys. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 17 times, shame on me. But hey, let's go.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
AP, I think the writing's on the wall for our boy Sam Pittman. Nobody took Mississippi State. I was a little nervous about that one. A little bit nervous about that one.
I really wanted to take Jacksonville State. I really did. I really did. I just think best player on the field is Rattler. And, I mean, God, they can't lose to Jacksonville State, can they? But if they do.
I thought about it long. I got to watch Jacksonville State earlier in the year. Man, if they had a little bit more settled quarterback play, they have a great defense for that level, and they have a really strong running game. They have one really good tailback. I think he was earlier in the year averaging like 110 yards a game. But their quarterback situation to go on the road at South Carolina, I don't know that I can figure it out. But it's Rich Rod. He'll have some scheme stuff for South Carolina, and maybe that team's just thrown in the towel. I mean, Spencer Rattler did not look good last week at all. So that's the one thing I wonder about is this. When you have we've been around coaches that kind of say some weird things, and we all know how the team reacts to that. They can give up a little bit quicker on, maybe than some other coaches. So I wonder about that one is how invested are the players in Columbia, South Carolina right now?
Yeah, you have the collective out there begging for money, saying they're not going to have enough money to keep their best players. And
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of vibes that aren't real good over there. Remember this, too, about South Carolina. And listen, if I had not seen Jacksonville State play Sam Houston State on like a Tuesday night or whatever it was, I would have probably picked Jacksonville State. But they scared me in that Sam Houston State game, and I was kind of like, I don't know if they got. I don't know that they can play with SEC athletes. But what I was going to say is the one thing about South Carolina is they seem to be regressing offensively.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, they got a first-year coordinator in Dow Loggins.
They don't have the signals from Connor Stallions anymore, Hubbard.
That's okay. maybe that's part of it too. But Dow Loggins is, he's got a history of being a little bit disruptive if things aren't going well. They haven't gotten better offensively. They were really good until everybody kind of got a beat on their scheme, and then they seem to be going kind of in the wrong direction offensively, which is why this game is really intriguing. The Kentucky thing to me is, I just don't think Mississippi State could score. If Mississippi State had some offense, then that would be a really temptation pick, because I'm not sure Devin Leary is going to play nearly as well this week as he did last week.
I don't think you will. It was good to see Leary show up, not O'Leary. But I mean, I do think that that's a sneaky good game. And I came so close to picking Vanderbilt to beat Auburn.
Did you really?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah. It's at Vanderbilt, man. Tough place to play.
That construction going on in the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, you realize how distracting that is when they got a jackhammer over in the end zone going?
Yeah, when you're up 49-0, it's really distracting.
Hey, here's the crazy thing about that. They've got up temporary tents for a locker room, and it's a better locker room than what they have in their permanent structure for the opposing locker room in terms of space. They have so much more space. I didn't get the whole Hugh Freeze, it's a hard place to play comment. That's a really bad sell publicly. Nobody's buying that one. That one was a head scratcher.
Hey, listen, Paulie bought Hugh Freeze's stuff. Hugh Freeze came right over to the Fortenberry house and laid it on thick.
Came and hung out with us, man.
Liberty.
All right, I want to go to Paul's pick of LSU at Alabama. Walk me through because here's where I am with that one.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I think LSU can score. I think they can move the ball. I don't know if they can stop Alabama. And it's just Alabama at home in November with a division title on the line. That just feels like it's always been an Alabama win, right?
I'm a big believer in when you have teams that are close to each other, I tend to take the better quarterback. And I think Jaden Daniels is better quarterback. Now, here's the thing. Who do I trust more, Nick Saban or Brian Kelly? Well, that's no brainer. Obviously,
I trust the officials.
Yeah.
I bet I bet Alabama doesn't get called for holding this week. Anybody want to take a bet on that one?
Yeah, shocker, right? No, I think one of these weird games. I don't think Alabama's invincible like they seemingly have been in the years past. I think they still have their warts. They've just been playing better, but LSU's been playing better too. I think I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels. Maybe is this a Heisman kind of game for him? And I love their receivers. They're big time receivers. So, I mean, I see this being 38-35 or 41-38 kind of game. I think it'll be a high scoring. I mean, literally, I'm super excited about it. We got a late football game in Lynchburg this Saturday, but I'm hoping this one's still going on afterwards and catch the fourth quarter. So,
as for the game we all came to see, Paulie, will he take UConn to upset the Vols?
I saw UConn. I saw UConn in person last year at University of Connecticut. Surprising tailgating scene up there, AP. I saw an upset up there. I don't think we'll see an upset on Saturday in Neyland Stadium. I think the Vols roll. Absolutely. It won't even be close. But congrats to UConn on having a successful program after essentially almost dying a couple years ago, and they're moving in the right direction. So, yeah, good for them. I had a fun time up there. We stayed in the city, AP, saw Hamilton. So great time at UConn. But, yeah, all about the Vols this weekend. That's all I can really say about the game. I mean,
you hung out with Rip Hamilton?
No, we didn't see him. We tried to look for him. And
what about Ray Allen?
No, I would have totally hung out with Ray Allen. What was the guy that the Grizzlies took with the first overall pick? The Hashim Thabit. That's who we hung out with.
Well, unless Jim Calhoun shows up, Connecticut's got no shot in this game. Man, I'm not sure he's showing up because he's not real beloved at UConn anymore.
No,
Will Gino come down for the game is the question.
It's the Pat Summit. I saw that, the accessory game or whatever, where they'll wear the baby blue accessories. Maybe Gino will be there in the box somewhere.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? There won't be a Volquest interview with Gino before the game?
No, I don't think so.
He is Brent Hubbs. He is Paul Fortenberry. Make sure you give Paul a call today, and make sure to like and subscribe this video. Get it out there for more Vol fans, more SEC fans. But give Paul a call today at Wyatt Insurance Services. That number is 865-862-3997. Ask for Paul. He'll tell you some great Rob Lewis stories. And eventually, you never know, old Rob may pop in on the Old Ball with the Peas podcast.
Oh, love that.
1 week before the end of the season. Guys, we'll see you next week.